Dr. Jazz.
Probably answered this question many times, but I just saw that, you know, last year, Detail,
Yeah.
new live recording came out
Yeah.
from Stavanger, 1990, I think it was. And, you know, I think this is one of the most important in free improvisation, let's call, bands that existed. And I wanted to ask you, how do you feel, how do you see this group, and how did actually your story with John Stevens begin? I mean, you know, he's one of the founding fathers of this music.
I know. Well, it began because I was reading The Melody Maker way back in the 70s, I guess. And there was one person that came up time and time again, and his name was John Stevens. John Stevens had said something bad about somebody, or he had been, you know, chatting, or has been in trouble somehow. And I mean, that name came up again and again. And so I was a teacher at the time, and I was bringing a class over to London for a week. We had some different things that we were going to do together. And then, so one night, I discovered that he was playing one night at the Marquee Club. So I went there and listened to that was the away group, you know, the electric group they had.
Yeah.
And so after the gig was over, I talked to him, and I said, asked him if he would be interested in coming over to Norway to do a workshop. And he said, yeah, you know, I loved Edvard Munch, he said, you know, the painter. And so I'd love to come to Norway again. I always loved coming to Norway, he said. So maybe a year later, I can't remember now how far away that was, but I was going to play a gig with a friend of mine on piano, and we had a drummer. And all of a sudden, he got a ticket for Christmas by his parents. So he was going back to America for Christmas. And this was just the 21st or 22nd of December. So it was like a Christmas gig. And so we had no drummer. And I said to my friend, I'm going to call John Stevens, because I want to play. At that point, I was almost giving up on playing music, because, you know, it was very difficult. And so I said, I'd like to play with one good drummer, you know, just have that tasted, you know. So I called him up, and he said, yeah, I'll come over. So what we did was we had an open rehearsal one day, and then we played a concert the following day. And it was all very, very great. And we became, you know, quite close immediately, talking and, you know, making jokes and all of that. And so when I took him to the airport, he said, we need to continue this, but it would be nice to have a bass player, he said. And I said, and who would that be? Well, the best, he said. And who is the best? Johnny Dyani, he said. So I can't remember now whether I contacted Johnny or John did. It was probably me, because at that time he was living in Finland. And so that was, he was, or was it Sweden? Well, I think actually he was living in Sweden at that time. Yeah, he had been living in Finland. And then so in what was that, March in '82, we all met together for the first time. We played 6 gigs or something like that, and it was all very, very, you know, shoestring budget. So I think after the gig, we had finished everything. I had something like $5 or something left in my pocket. But everything was paid for, so you know. It didn't cost me anything, but I looked at it as you know, going to school, learning something.
Yeah.
And from that on, we just continued playing. So later that year, we played at the Molde Festival.
Oh yeah.
And after that, a couple of months after that, we were touring. We played, I can't remember how many gigs we played, but we played a few gigs. And after the last gig, there was a big discussion, and so in the morning, and we were going into the studio 2 days there after that to record. And so the piano player left in the morning, and we never saw him again, So when we went into the studio to record, backwards and forwards, that first LP that we did, it was such a relief. It was so well, it was because, I mean, I think we had, the piano player and I, we had different ideas, basically. And so when I was playing with John and Johnny on my own, it was so much easier. Everything was much clearer without the piano.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed doing that very, very much. And that was sort of the beginning of the trio. And we continued playing up until Johnny died in '86. And I still remember the last gig we did in London at a place called The Plough, where John had been playing at least once a month for a long, long time, and we were playing that, and the place was absolutely packed. And it was summer. It was I think it was in July, and it was a very humid room, and I was totally soaked, and so Bobby Bradford came to play with us during that week or 10 days or whatever it was. And I remember seeing Johnny leaving the room. He had a straw hat on his head, and he had one girl in each arm and the bass in the middle. So he was like, ciao, And I never saw him again because he died 2-3 months later. That was really sad because I have to say, for me, being relatively inexperienced at the time, playing with John and Johnny was, I felt I was playing with the best group in the world, because Johnny was staying on one side, John was in the middle, and I was on the other side. And so Johnny and I were communicating basically through John. So his rhythms were sort of holding the whole thing together. And Johnny was always very clear. I could easily hear what he was doing. So it was easy for me to relate to what he was doing, And it's a shame. At that time, I didn't know almost anyone in Europe. I didn't know how to get the band on the road. I didn't know anything. But I tried. But, unfortunately, we were not invited to any of the festivals in Europe or anything like that. It was, I don't know. Looking back, I think we would see. I think that many people looked at us as too much jazz for free. And we was too far out for the jazzers. So we were in the middle somewhere. But I thought that position in the middle could have been very interesting. Because,
it's the best.
Because, well,
and I
understand. That's what I mean too, because I thought that we could have appealed to quite a big group of people. And I remember when we played at the Bracknell Festival, which became in time was we were playing in the theater, and it was packed. Quite a few people. But of course we had Bobby Bradford with us
Mhm.
at that time. That was the first time I played with Bobby, and his name, of course, drew
Drew,
quite a few
yeah.
people there. I was so nervous when I was going to play with him. But, I mean, he had been playing with All Net. He had been doing lots
Yeah,
of
yeah, one
things.
of the greats. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bobby is such a gentleman. He's so sweet. It's untrue. It's almost, you can't believe it, because when I was, when we play and you get heated up, and sometimes you make mistakes and you do this and you do that. And Bobby would very nicely just say, "Ba, ba, da, ba, da, ba," whatever, just a little thing. And he would sort of lead me back on the track. So he did that in a very, very nice way. And I thought playing with him was so great. And I've had contact with him all the way since then. He's been playing in my big group,
Yeah.
Circulation Totale, and I've been in the States playing. We did a 80-year anniversary tour with him a few years back, and I'm actually working on something now. I mean, I don't know exactly how old Bobby is now, but he must be getting close to 90.
Wow, already. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, as I said, because when we did that tour, I think that was in 14 or I can't remember now. But anyway, so I just contacted Bobby a few days ago, and I know that he is playing with a tuba player, a very good tuba player in LA, and and I've been in contact with. I met Gerald Cleaver.
Yeah, I love Gerald. We played together a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, I was playing at the Vision Festival,
Mhm.
and we talked quite a bit. Standing outside smoking, and and so we said, okay, let's try to play together. And because of COVID, it never happened.
Oh man, that would be wow. That would be amazing. Yeah,
So
you and Gerald would be
so
amazing.
so who he is he has now moved to the West Coast. I don't know if it's San Francisco or Oakland,
Yeah.
one of these places. And so I want to try to get him, Bobby, and this tuba player, William Roper,
Mhm.
and try to see if we can record something together.
Oh, beautiful.
So Bobby has been with me for a long time, and he has always been very supportive, always been very, very nice. And it's nice to have one or two people that you can sort of, where they are all the time.
Yeah.
You can give them a call and you can have a good chat, and one of these
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
How did that quartet happen with Ingebrigt and Paul? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
such a killing group. I mean,
We did. I can't remember how, but we did play something, and then when the anniversary tour was coming up, or I was setting it up, Paul couldn't do it, so Ingebrigt suggested Frank Rosalie should do it,
yeah.
and Bobby was very happy with Frank's playing, so that was nice too, very nice.
Yeah.
Did you
It's,
see? Did you see that CD that came out after the kid?
yeah. The silver. What is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, Silver Cornet.
Silver Cornet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, he's such an underrated player, Bobby. If you ask me, like.
Yeah. That's what I feel too. I mean, I've been thinking a little bit about this trumpet playing in that freer
Yeah.
jazz area, and for some reason it seems like that most of the trumpet players have picked up what Don Eiler did, Albert Eiler's brother,
Mhm.
and very few have gone into to investigate what Bobby has been doing, because he's in a way that he's a bebop player, but he isn't.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
knows how to do it. But he's manipulating all these chords and everything, the scales and everything. So
Kenny is the same. Wheeler was. I
yeah,
mean, like this vibe of free playing.
yeah. But he knows all these things.
Yeah.
And I think that this has also to do with, I don't know if you have heard any of the duo recordings he did with John Carter.
Yeah, don't know. I don't think so. Have to check it out then.
I highly recommended. They got 2 CDs out on M&M,
Oh, okay.
and they're so tight. Bobby used to tell me that they used to meet once or twice a week,
Oh, well.
just the 2 of them, to rehearse. And they had dinner together, and then they went out in the back garden, and where Bobby has a little house, and they were practicing there. And you can hear that they're so fucking tight, you know. And the idea is like, well, it's based on compositions.
Yeah.
I mean, compositions.
Yeah.
It's just a few lines, you know, or whatever, a few sounds, and then they go. But they know each other so well, and it's like they go this way, they go that way, and they, you know, go every way. So that's very, very nice to hear. Highly recommended.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I mean, that's what you had, like with Johnny and John, like you said in detail. I think that especially with Johnny, I mean, how did the vibe in detail change for you as a saxophone player when Kent came? Because it's a completely, I mean, Kent is a master player, but I think
totally different.
It's changed, right? Yeah,
totally different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to tell you the truth, I mean, I have very high respect of Kent. Kent knows a lot.
Yeah.
He knows a lot, and he's a very good player. But I felt that I was, how do you say that? I felt that he was so much better than me that I felt uncomfortable, you know, at times. I did. But, you know, when that record came out and I was listening to it again, I thought, what a great player he was, or is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's alive, but I don't know if he plays very much. But I thought he was a fucking great bass player, and I think I didn't catch all the things that he did at the time, but I felt
overwhelmed in a way, or
something like that. Overwhelmed, you can easily say that. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, it's beautiful because it's like 2 different bands. You know, it's you and John navigating, and the bass just, you know, completely changes the whole vibe, and it's
that's
cool to hear that.
So I remember when we first played together, I was, in a way, expecting to do the old detail thing, but then I realized very soon that this is not going to happen. We're a different world now.
Yeah.
And it was also John's choice to have Kent in the group.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Because they had played together with Steve Lacy at some point. And I think also Kent came to London to play with Bobby and John. And I think with, what's his name, Trevor Watts.
Oh, yeah.
I think they played a bit together. So John was familiar with Kent, and he always loved Kent a lot.
Yeah.
So they had lots of laughs together, you know.
Yeah. But Frode,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you this, like, catch you before you said that, you know, you called John just to be able to play one time with a really good drummer to have that experience. And then I went through the CD collection of the CDs that I have you on, and the drummers you played with, and it's like, you know, I don't know, Mark Sanders, Hamid Drake, Paal Nilsen, Luis Moholo, Rashid Bakr, you know, all these incredible guys. And when I saw you with Paal a couple of years ago, you seem to rely really a lot on drums, and I wanted to ask you, what do drums mean for you in music? I mean,
that's the engine of the band. And if the drummer is not up to playing to be the engine, then it becomes a bit difficult. Then you can just leave it out and play without the drummer.
Yeah.
Now I've always loved drums, and I've always loved relatively loud drums because that is very exciting to me. And there's a price I had to pay for that because now I got a hearing aid.
Shit, yeah.
Because I've been standing next to Paal Nilsen-Love for a while, and you know sometimes his hi-hat is very, very loud. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I've playing with drummers is always very, very exciting. And I mean, they all have their own thing,
Yeah.
but they inspire me a lot. And I mean, I'm not a jazz player. I can't play jazz, but I like jazz and I take some elements from jazz and I play them around. But sometimes when I play with a relatively jazzy drummer, I don't know, it just gives me some taste of something, and I try to transform that into my world, you know. And I'm sure that people who are very much into jazz think that this is fucking stupid. This is, you know, they can't play or whatever, you know.
Sure.
But that's I'm not too concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is that I want to have some ideas when I play. So I might, for example, just give you a very good example of this, because sometimes, you know, if you if you are in your car and you put on the radio and then you hear something, oh, that's a fucking nice groove, ding, 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 you know. And then all of a sudden the singer comes in and you find that what I thought was the one is not the one. Just, I've heard the beat in a different place, you know. So I found the beat or the rhythm to be very much more exciting than it really is.
Yes, yeah.
And this is what I'm looking for, you know, when I play with a more traditional jazz drummer. I hear maybe a little, let's say, phrase, and I'm not so concerned whether that is on the 1, 2, 3, or 4, whatever, you know. I just hear it and I try to maybe pick up on that and play with that, and then I'll hear something else. And I remember playing with John for the first time. Then I realized I could play with his snare drum.
Yeah.
I could play with his bass drum or his hi-hat or his ride cymbal. But they will, I mean, he was very much into polyrhythms. So I knew that if I connected with one of those, I would be connected to the main rhythm, you know, but maybe in a weird way, you know. And that's also what was interesting with Johnny when he was a ding, ding, dong, 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 you know, his things. He would, in a way, anchor me. He would pull me back and say, oh, this is where it is, you know. So I would fly off and he would, you know. So these things, so at the best times when we did this, it worked really well. Other times it was not so well. But I mean, all bands have their ups and downs, but I always felt it was very exciting to play with them. And in fact, I was so much into playing with John and Johnny that I remember when the first record came out, there was a guy in Sweden who wrote a review, and he said, it sounds like Frode is smiling all the way through. And
wow, man.
And that's my feeling. I mean, I want to smile when I want to enjoy myself. I don't care too much what it sounds like or what this or what that, because I'm trying to not, what do you say? I don't want to criticize myself, because if you do that, you're fucked. You have to enjoy the moment of it. And if you don't enjoy it, then you should just stop playing and let the others go on and then jump in somewhere else. Because it must be fun. It must be joyful, you know. That's what I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Choosing the right moment, and I mean that's what improvisation is all about, and listening. exactly. But I wanted to catch you here about one thing that you said now, that you know that you weren't jazzy enough and you weren't free enough. But let's say we're talking about Norway in mid 60s, and I mean, you know, Garbarek came, like, which was one part that he went into a completely other direction. Then you had like Arild Andersen and all incredible players. But what got you excited in that period for improvisation, or especially later? Which were the records that like blew your mind? Was it like Albert Ayler or like Ornette, or like what was the moment when you said like, oh shit, that's it?
Well, I have to tell, this is a little story, but it takes a little bit of time.
Oh, please.
You know, when I was a kid, I was maybe 12 or something like that. My father gave me a gramophone. There were lots of 78s and there were 245s, and the 245s were from the Benny Goodman story. There was a film, you know, about Benny Goodman.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I played those records, and I said to my father, "What is this?" "Oh, it's jazz," he said. And then I said, well, "Yeah, but what is jazz?" "Well, they come together and they jam." "They jam?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, so I said, "What is jamming?" "It is, well, they just come together and they play." So I got the impression that these guys were very, very good players. Well, of course, they were good players, but they just came together and they played, and it sounded so great, you know. That's what I thought. I was young and innocent. And so one day I was playing in the marching band at the school. And one day the conductor had to make a phone call, so we were left on our own. So I said to the others, "Let's jam." And they said, "What is that?" "Oh, we just play." So we did that, you know.
Exactly.
So everybody thought it was horrible, you know. And I thought it was horrible. And then, in a way, my thought that these guys in the Benny Goodman band, that they were so great players that they could do this. In a way, they sort of confirmed that thought.
Yeah.
So I thought that the jazz music was free, you know. And I didn't know about chords. I didn't know about arrangements. I didn't know any of those things. And so I lived with that thought for some time. And then I found out there was a radio program every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And my father came back from work at 5:35. No, 5:25. And so when he came into the house, everything should be, I had to turn down the radio because it should be quiet when he came from work. He was tired, you know. So he should go straight to the table and start eating. Anyway, but I still got the chance to hear about Ben Webster, and I thought about that's amazing sound that he had.
Yeah.
And I heard about Coleman Hawkins, I heard about Eric Dolphy, and I heard about a few players, and I still thought that they were free, that they were inventing what they played. Although I did understand that they were playing some melodies, you know, because they could say this was Pennies from Heaven or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And then, but my main belief was still that jazz music was free. So one day, I guess I was about 16 or something, maybe 17, I guess 16. And a friend of mine, they had television, and we didn't have it at that time. So it was very cold outside, and he said, "Let's go home to my place. I think there's some music on the television." And we went there, and there was a black guy playing drums, black guy playing violin, and a white guy playing bass. And they went on, and you know, normally you play the violin like this, but this guy was playing like that, and it was very intense. And I thought, wow, gosh, what is this? And I found out later, I didn't know who it was or anything, but it must have been Ornette from the Golden Circle, you know.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so the Swedes, they recorded, they recorded all of that, and I guess those films were just, wiped away, or I don't know what. I mean, they say that BBC made some recordings of Albert Ayler, and they thought it was so, useless music.
That's terrible, man. Yeah. That's so bad.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was a major thing for me to see. So then I started buying records, and I started buying one of the first records I bought was Milestones with Cannonball and Coltrane. And at the time I was playing trumpet, and I tried to play along with them, and still I thought it was pretty open. And there was a couple of those songs that was, they were sort of, what do you call it, based on scales and stuff like that. And so it was relatively easy for me to follow, although I couldn't follow when they had chord changes. That was a bit more difficult. Anyway, so then I started by, then I read some books about jazz, and they referred very often to downbeat. So I went down to the major store in town to have magazines, and there was downbeat, and I picked it up, and there was this guy with his beard was half white, half black, and his name was Albert Ayler. And I read this interview with him, and I didn't understand anything, because he talked about vibrations and outer space, and I don't know what it was. And so 1 or 2 days, and there was a review of a record that he had made called Live in Greenwich Village.
Yeah.
And they gave him, I don't know, 4 or 5 stars, but it was, highly regarded. So funnily enough, I went down to the record store, which I've been used to. I went there quite a bit to see if I could find something. And all of a sudden, that record was standing there. And there was only 1 copy, so I just grabbed it and went home, and I thought, wow, what is this? I thought it was so great. So I called some of my friends, come over. I'm so excited. There's some new music here. They came over, and I said, what? You like this? And I just, I liked it very much. So I think that when I heard Albert Ayler, that in a way summed up all my loose threads, because that it was free music in a way, where he had such an expressive sound, that grabbed me very, very much. And as I said, I was playing trumpet. I was playing trumpet in a rhythm and blues band.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. And one day, the saxophone player said, "Oh, I have to quit because my girlfriend doesn't want me to be playing music." So the other guys turned around and said, "You have to either sell the trumpet and get yourself a saxophone, or you have to quit. We don't need a trumpet in the band." And so I went down to the music store and traded in my trumpet for a saxophone. And this was on a Tuesday, and on Friday or Saturday we were playing it dance,
Oh man.
And I was, in that band trying to play like Albert Ayler was playing. I thought, I had to bring the hipness of Albert Ayler to this music. And everybody was, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" So, yeah. But then I discovered a year later that they had given me a baritone mouthpiece for the saxophone, and then somebody said the saxophone is out of tune, and So, so I went down to the store again and said, I think there must be some misunderstanding. This saxophone is out of tune. I said, I want a real saxophone. I want a Selma. So I didn't know this at the time, but the guy who sold me the saxophone, he had recently been not in jail, but there was a lawsuit where he was accused of having somebody engrave the Selma name on some saxophones and sold,
Oh yeah, okay.
They probably came from Eastern Europe somewhere, I don't know, but and he made them into Selmas, So when I said I want a real Selma, because he said this is a Selma from Düsseldorf. I mean, I didn't know because
Sure.
I knew the Selmas were made in France, but I thought, okay, but there could be maybe a factory in Düsseldorf as well. I don't know. So I said, but this is out of tune. I need a saxophone which is in tune. And then he said, I've probably given you the wrong saxophone, he said. Because, as you know, the good saxophone players, they always have two saxophones, he said. And I just bought the record by Solomon Rollins, and I can't remember which one it was called, but there was a picture of him entering the studio with two saxophones. So it sort of made sense what he said. And then he said, because when the music heats up and everybody starts dancing and the room gets warm and and I could relate to that. Then the saxophone player will pick up his oh my God, there's a name. I need that.
Like a type of saxophone or no?
Yeah. Whatever the saxophone was tuned to. Oh my. What was it called when let's say let's say something like Bahamas. It's in what kind of zone do we call that? If you think about temperature.
Oh shit, heats up or groovy or I don't know. Yeah, okay.
It's such a simple word, but I just can't remember. Temperature zones. Brazil is in if you were very close to Ecuador, to the equator.
Yeah, equator.
And then gradually you move north or you move south, and it becomes colder and colder.
Yeah, so it's oh man, this is like a quiz now,
Yeah. And I need to know that word. It's almost there. It's almost there. It's I can't remember now.
Zones climate.
Yeah. Well, not climate, but the climate is called. The different climate zones have.
Okay. Shit. Latitude. No, kind of. Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I'll remember later, but what he said was, you probably got one of these saxophones for that kind of climate. He said, a warm climate, so it will be tuned a different way, which of course was all bullshit. But he was trying to get away from, from that. So I said, yeah, but I want the real Selma. So I got the Selma a week later, and so that was a good saxophone. And then I got a new mouthpiece, and so I was trying to get that together. But I never had a teacher because there was nobody in Stavanger that could teach me saxophone. So I've been making all the possible mistakes that you can ever do playing saxophone. And I probably have quite a few. I still have some of those early things that, you know, that I make mistakes, but I don't give a shit about that anymore, because I think the sound in the end is what counts, you know. So
but you said before that you know, like before you hooked up with John Stevens, that it was getting heavy for you, or I mean, you know, now like the Norwegian jazz scene and kind of got this rebirth like mid-90s or a little bit later, and an incredible new wave almost formed, which influenced basically, you know, the entire musical world, improvisation jazz scene. But how was it for you, like mid-70s or late 70s? How did you gig? What did you gig? And because there aren't any recordings actually of you from that era, right, yet?
Yeah, well, we made some cassettes, you know.
Oh, okay.
And I actually have, there's actually one of those, the first cassette that we did with John, that concert and some of the rehearsal session is on my Bandcamp site. You know, it's called Christmas Cards.
Oh, okay. Check it out. I didn't see that.
But at that time, you know, being in Norway was, well, I don't know. It was because I have I can't compare with anything, because that was the time when I was sort of growing up.
Yeah.
But there was very much focus on Jan Garbarek and what he did. And the tragedy, in a way, is that we were only 4 million people in Norway at the time. So it's a very small country. And if one person does something, you know, everybody knows about it. So everybody wants to be the same person. They want to do the same. And you had almost, well, from that generation, most people were trying to emulate the sound that Garbarek had, which is understandable. But I was in Finland a few years back, maybe 10 years, so, and they wanted to interview me for the Finnish radio. They were working on a film about the Nordic sound. So this guy says, what is your opinion about the Nordic sound? So I said, the Nordic sound? What the fuck is that? I think the most important instrument in the Nordic sound is a lexicon reverb, I said. But he did not understand what I was saying. But the engineer, he was laughing his head off, you know, when we did it. So, but you know, and they still today, people in Norway say that the ECM thing has been fantastic. I think it's been, you know, a disaster. I think it's been a disaster for the Norwegian music, because just one side of the music has been promoted. All the other things, because we were such a small country, like in England, there were different things happening at the same time. You know, you had spontaneous music and all that. You had Rolling Stones. You had all these things happening at the same time. And these guys, they used to play together. You know, Ginger Baker and John they were living in the same house as Johnny McLaughlin. Yeah. And so they were jamming together, you know, and one drummer was maybe a bit better to do this thing and another was better to do that. But they were talking together and they were developing. And you had different schools, different groups of people playing and developing things. Whereas in Norway, there was only ECM thing. That was the way that people were measured by how close they were getting to that you know, ECM thing. And still today, you have I don't know. I feel that we have 500,000 piano trios, and we don't. But I mean, there's a
No, but
lot,
I know what you mean. I know what you
and
mean.
they are so. They're, when they write about it, they say, "Oh, they're so sensitive," and you
But they
hear
sound the
that.
same. Yeah.
Clang, 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 boom, 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 and it's like, you know, it's becoming a parody of itself today. So
Yeah.
I'm just asking myself, where is the energy? Where is the energy? They're trying to hide the energy, and yeah.
No, but I know what you mean. Exactly, I know what you mean.
And
You
I
don't
think,
recognize them also, you know, who it is, because it all sounds similar.
yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, what we play also sounds similar. So it's the same thing. You can see, but there should be room for different
Yeah.
developments. And I'm not saying, because I think that if you talk about free music is just like Dixieland music today in many ways, because Dixieland music, or I mean, not many people are playing Dixieland music anymore, but there was a time when Dixieland music was very popular, and you had sort of a formula, and there's just the same thing with the free music. You have the formula. You can say, you got the Peter Brötzmann school, you got this school or that school, so on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people trying to be Peter Brötzmann. And so again, you got this thing with, you have one person who does something outstanding,
Yeah.
and then lots of people try to climb on his shoulders or have a bite of that cake, you know. So I mean, I know, I don't know Peter very well, but we have played together, and I've talked to him quite a bit, and we talk a bit on the internet, you know. So I have some ideas where he is, and I have great respect for him, you know, because I think he's a really artist. He's
Mhm.
he's an artist, and he's very honest about what he's doing. And there are, of course, there are many saxophone players who could do lots of other things that Peter can't do, but as soon as you hear his sound, you know who he is. And you can
Yeah.
say that with Jan Garbarek as well. As soon as you hear his sound, you know who he is. So I have great respect for Jan Garbarek, that he found a sound, you
His
know.
language, yeah.
Yeah. But there are people in our country who is playing Jan Garbarek more than Jan Garbarek is doing.
Yeah. It's on every instrument like that. It's terrible. Yeah.
But then it becomes sort of a farce, you know. It's Anyway.
Yeah. Interesting.
So that was my little thing about ECM.
No, but it's true. You know, it's like what you said in a way, because even now in jazz, it's like that. If you think about it, in some stuff is getting, but now it's a different time, of course, industry-wise and everything. But it's still almost the same. What is being promoted and what is left on the sites and stuff like that. So, but yeah. But Frode, I wanted to ask you just one thing. Talking about kind of rebirth, like one of the first album I heard you on was Seeing New York from the ear, and you know, it's, if you still put that one on, it's like.
But there's a bass drum on that.
Yeah, okay, but
there's a fucking horrible sound.
The knitting, it's Knitting Factory kind of, but okay.
I did.
But
that,
you're playing, man. It's wow.
That was it needs a little bit of explanation, because I came to Borah, Bergman and I. We had relationship. And we had good times and we had bad times together. So he was in Norway to do something. And no, Borah and I, we did a tour with Evan Parker.
Oh, really? Man.
And before the tour, he came 1 or 2 days earlier, so we recorded something. And so Borah said to me, I think you should come over to New York and then we can edit the tapes together and see if we can get a CD out of that. So I managed to scrape together some money to go over there. And I had a few drinks on the plane. So I thought if I walk up to where he is on 73rd Street, I'll get sober, you know. So that's what I did. I walked, and it took me, I don't know, an hour or whatever. Came up to Borah, and Borah said, opened the door and said, it's not good enough. So I said, what, Borah? I've come here to do the editing. It's not good enough. And I knew Borah, okay. So I thought, all right, fuck it, you know. So I said, all right, I'll see you. And so I walked back again because I had to clear my head. And at the time I was staying with a guy called Mark Hannon, who's a piano player. And I told him, because he was tuning Borah's piano. So he knew, and he was also tuning Cecil Taylor's piano. So, but he knew Borah a little bit. I knew he could be really like this.
Mm.
And so Mark said to me, oh, don't think about it. There will be other possibilities, he said. And of course I knew that, but I mean, at the time I was really pissed off with him. So then Mark said, but we're going to have a jam session here on Wednesday. Why don't you come? He said. So I said, who's coming? Well, I said, William Parker, Rashid Bakr, Sabir, Mateen, and a few others.
Mm.
So I played with them, which was really nice. And after we finished, I said to William and Rashid, I told them about the project with Borah that was fucking out the window. So I said, could we possibly record something before I leave? And so he said, when do you leave? And I said, Saturday. So they said, yeah, if you can find a studio, we can record, we'll do it. So what I did, I went straight over to Knitting Factory, which was just a few blocks away from where I was staying. And the first person I run into is the engineer at the Knitting Factory. I can't remember his name now, but he had been up to Borah's place and he had recorded something with us before. So I said, can you record Rashid, William, and me? When are you leaving? And I said, Saturday I have to go to the airport about 2 o'clock, I said. So he said, all right, we can do it here at the Knitting Factory Saturday morning. So if you come here at 10 o'clock, we can do it. I came to the Knitting Factory and there was a fire brigade outside. And there had been a fire. There wasn't a fire, but the alarm went off. So in the end, we came in there and we set up in the bar, actually, downstairs. And we started playing, and after 60 or 70 minutes, I said, all right, this is it. I have to go. So I got the tapes, paid them, and went straight to the airport. And so I thought, when I was sitting on the plane, well, at least I have something in my hand. And so that was my first meeting with William. And then the year after, I think it was I got a prize it was either that year or the year after I got a prize saying, yeah, it must have been that year, 96. It was the sort of jazz musician of the year. And the prize was to play a concert in Oslo with whoever I wanted to play with. So I talked to Peter Brosman about that, and he said, you must get Hamid and William. Those are the guys. So I talked to them, and they said, yeah, okay, we'll do that. And I thought, you know, just coming here for one gig is ridiculous. So I went on the phone and worked really hard for a week, and then I got together 10 gigs, you know, in Scandinavia. They came over and we played, and a couple of those gigs were recorded, and one was released by Cadence in the States called Ultima, which was the name of the festival that we played. And another one was recorded in Stavanger called Remember to Forget. So that tour was fantastic for me. The last 3 gigs, Hamid couldn't play. And so he had to go to play with Yusef Latif. And so we had Louis Maholo playing with us.
Oh, wow, man.
Which was great again, but then you play with Louis, and then he stops. And he's looking around, did he fall off the chair or something? No, he's just ding, 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 and then he goes on again. So William enjoyed very much playing with Louis, and so did I. So, but it was so different, you know, of course, those 2 drummers. And so after we did this, I managed to set up a tour in January of 2000 in the States. That was all done over the internet. And I had one internet address, which was to a guy in Vancouver. And so I said that we're going to do a tour with Hamid and William and me. Would you be interested? And he said, yes, I'll buy that, he said. And then I said, is there anyone near you who has an internet address that I could contact? And then he said, Seattle and Oregon. What's the name of I can't remember the Portland. So it just went like this, and I got this and I got that. So in the end, we had 12 gigs, I think.
Wow, man.
Yeah. So I remember we ended up in Edmonton, in Canada. And that was, you know, I remember sitting in the taxi at 4:00 in the morning to grab my flight back to Norway. And I was very, very, very tired. And I was so happy, you know, because we managed to do this tour. And this is one of the best tours that I've done, because at the time, I have to say this, but because at the time, Hamid and William, I mean, they became sort of a pair, you know, and they played with lots and lots and lots of musicians. So they were sort of, you hire them and you know what you get. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At the beginning, I guess, I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that the gig they did with Brosman and Die Like a Dog trio was one of the first things that they did together. I'm not sure. But,
possible, yeah.
But it was relatively early, and I was very happy that I could grab them at the early stage. First in 97 that we did this thing in Scandinavia, then in 2000 we did the US thing, because they didn't travel very much in the States, because it was hard for them to get enough money to cover the travel expenses and still have a little bit in their pocket. And I managed to get some travel support from the Norwegian government it was not very much, but it was enough to, let's say, so I could pay them a reasonable amount, you know. Anyway, so, and I remember I was completely shocked, because after we played, people were standing up and yelling, and it was like really, you know, fantastic. I'd never had anything like that. So I thought, wow, I like this. You know?
Yeah.
But I've had contact with them, you know, on and off over these years. And if I go to New York, I always try to see if I can see William.
Yeah.
Because he's such a nice guy to be with. And Hamid, it's the same thing. You know, sometimes if you're in Chicago, he will come out and have a listen if he's at home. And, you know, it's always nice to see him. Such a sweet guy.
Yeah.
So I have some very, very good memories playing with them. And I think that the fact that they were much more jazz than I was, but they brought me into this jazz thing in a way. And I enjoyed doing that. I remember we had, I guess that every set, we played 2 sets a night, and I think the first set would be 1.5 hours.
Man,
And then,
wow.
and the second would be the same. So we played basically for 3 hours. And I remember we used to have a sort of a routine where the second set would start with Hamid singing, playing, just you know, because at the time he was a Buddhist. No, he was a Muslim at the time. No, it was a Sufi. Sorry.
Sufi.
Yeah, Sufi Muslim. Do you know about that?
No,
it's a line within.
I mean, I know about Sufi. Yeah, I know about this. I didn't know about Hamid.
Because I think that, you know, Yusuf Latif was into that. And I think that brought also Hamid into it when he started playing together. Anyway, so Hamid was he's a very religious guy. At the same time, you wouldn't think of him as being religious, but when you start talking to him, and then you realize he's very much into philosophy and, you know, and what was I going to say?
Oh, that you started the second set always with Hamid.
Oh,
singing.
yeah. So he started singing. And then we did, and then William would be playing some flutes. So that would go on for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. And then we just sort of built up and played for half an hour. And then for the last 20 minutes, we were sort of landing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it would be like very, would be very, very simple. This is a riff that we would be working around, and it was like that. And so then we had landed. It wasn't very, you know, I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to that at all. I was used to go out and play, and, you know, you can add, you know, different places. But they had some kind of a plan. And maybe I think that they used that plan with lots of different musicians.
Yeah. If you listen to Ken Vandermark's trio, it was.
Yeah.
They had that going also. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, that's a plan that works for them.
It works. Yeah.
But that's the thing that. So if you ask them to play, then you know what you get.
Yeah.
And you have to go with that. Their dream, you know. Oh, I have to put some electricity on my computer.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, I will not take more of your time, Frode, but like, I just wanted to ask you, around the same time, you were, you know, talking about a different concept, like you played with Derek Bailey then.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, me being a guitarist, and Derek being probably one of the most influential improvisers how did that happen? I guess through John Stevens, but like,
Yeah.
how was it your experience playing with Derek? And
we played, John, Derek, and I played 3 gigs together. One gig was at the festival in Trondheim in the middle of Norway, and then we played in Oslo and Stavanger. No, it was, I mean, I had not met Derek before, and I can't remember. Yeah, I think we were actually invited by this festival in Trondheim. So I asked Derek if he wanted to do it, and said yeah. And then he said that I suggest John should use a jazz drum set, not a small set. John agreed with that. So the last gig that we did in Stavanger, I had got a little DAT recorder and had 2 microphones. I put them up. I didn't know too much about recording, at the time. So I just put them up and made that recording. And when I listened back to the DAT tape, I thought, oh, this is disgusting. And so I just left it. And then I met Derek again, I don't know, let's say 5 years later. At that time, John was dead. So I think he said to me, what happened to that recording you did? And I'd forgotten about it. So I went straight back and I found it in the cupboard. First thing I found was that tape. And I put it into my computer. And I listened to it and I thought, oh, this is weird. So what I did was, it was like 2 microphones. It was placed very far apart. I don't know, 4 meters or something like that. So I brought it together, more like a mono, not as a mono, but, sort of half, still kind of stereo. And then it sounded much better, of course, because it was not just one there, and it came together. So I put it on a CD and sent it to Derek. And I said, I'm sorry, but And so the next thing happened was that Martin Davidson, who runs Eminem, he called me and said, Derek has just sent me a CD of some music you did with him and John. Would you be interested in me releasing it? I said, yeah, of course. And then he said, but there's some crackles, there's some dropouts on the recording. And so I listened again, and it wasn't, it must have been when you burned the CD at the time. It was always reliable. So I sent him a new copy, and, he released it. So after it came out, I can't remember, it was maybe a year, maybe 2 years, I sent an email to Derek saying, maybe we should make a follow-up CD. And he said, yeah, okay, just come over. So I told him I have some equipment I could actually bring with me. Fine, he said, we can record in my study. So we did that. And I was a bit of a, what do you say, nerd about microphones. I found some tube microphones from Germany, from the 50s, and they were quite nice. Old Gefell. They were the company which became Neumann.
Yeah.
Because when Eastern Germany became Eastern Germany, lots of people went to the West. And Neumann and his guys went to the West with all his drawings and everything, but the factory was still in the East. So they were in a little place called Gefell, and that was the name of the microphones. Anyway, so I brought 2 of those with me to England and a few other things. And I think that was the time when I also recorded something with John Edwards and Mark Sanders.
Sanders, yeah.
In a little church in London. I think that was the same time. Anyway, so I set up everything, and Derek played a little bit. So I said, "Can you play a little bit so I get the levels?" And he did that. And so we started playing, and I looked over at the sound card, and not everything, but it was heavily hitting into the red because he had turned up his volume. And so after the first song, I had to turn everything down. And so when I came back, I was listening to it, and it was fucking lot of noise because it was overshooting, you know.
Yeah.
It was in the red. But so I thought, oh fuck, let's, you know. And yeah, and Derek said, after we played a little bit, he said, looked at his watch, he said, "We've been playing for 50 minutes. If we haven't got it by now, we won't get it," he said. So that was it, you know. And so I had 50 minutes of recording, and I think the first 12 minutes was useless. And I knew that Martin Davidson would not release anything unless it was 60 minutes. So I thought, all right, I just left it. And then I picked it up again, and I found out that one of the microphones that I've been using 2 microphones on this guitar. One of the microphones was in the red very often, but the other one was not. It was sort of, they were not having the same output, or I don't know, input or whatever. So I realized that if I took that track with one microphone and made it into some kind of a stereo, double the track, I could get away with it. But there was still some notes. Is that you? Huh? Okay.
Sorry? No.
I'm just hearing a lot of noise now. Is
Really?
that you?
I don't know. I'm okay.
It doesn't matter.
Sorry.
No, it doesn't matter. So anyway, I ended up using that one track, and then there was still some noises because he was going into the red, you know. So what I did, I put everything through a tube preamp, you know, and for some reason, I don't know how to explain it, but it sucked up all those, the nasty notes.
Yeah.
So what came out on the other side was acceptable, sound-wise. So I sent it to Martin saying, we only got 51 minutes or so, but I hope you can still use it. And he said, normally I wouldn't accept it, but because Derek is involved, I will. So that's how you know that came to be. But playing with Berg was very nice. He seemed to me to be a very nice guy, and he well, I mean, you come together and you play. He actually sent me a letter afterwards saying thank you so much for the gigs and so on. So he said, I actually enjoyed 2 out of the 3 gigs, which is a high percentage for me, he said. So the first gig that we played in Trondheim, he didn't like, and I didn't like it either, because we didn't know, we didn't find
the same language or
No, that's right. So sometimes it takes, sometimes it works like this, and sometimes it doesn't, and you have to accept that because that's part of the game. But I think he was. I felt it was very nice to play with him because he had all these funny sounds and these funny ideas, but he was really a loud player. I didn't
really, I never saw him live. I never got a chance.
Oh, he was, yeah, he was pretty loud, which I thought was quite exciting, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, amazing. But Frode, just
Yes.
to end with, I wanted to ask you, like, you know, you've been so active on Bandcamp as well, like
Oh,
all
yeah.
these, you know, new recordings with Paal and the two bassists,
Yeah.
and incredible music. And what are your plans now for, let's say, if this stupid COVID or whatever permits for this year? Do you have some new groups or planning
Well,
gigs or?
I have the COVID has been very bad. I haven't been sick or anything, not my wife either. So we have been in isolation very much. And I've just played a few gigs,
Mm.
but there's been times when I've looked into the tunnel and I don't see any light at all. You know, I'm asking myself, why am I going upstairs into this room and practice every morning, you know, at 9 o'clock? Why do I do this? Because I can't use it for anything, you know.
Mm.
And so I've come to a place now where I'm very insecure about my own playing. I'm not sure if I can play anymore, because I mean, if you play, you don't have to play every week or necessarily like that, but let's say you have one gig 1 month, one the next
Yeah.
month, you know, there's still some continuity. And you know that when you practice, you're practicing for this next gig, for
Yeah.
example, or some other project. And during the COVID, that has not happened. And Paul and I and Jon Rune, we were going to Brazil on the 17th of March was it 2020? Was that?
Yeah, when COVID started.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So our country was closed down on the 13th, and we were going on the 17th. So, and there was a big festival in Brazil where we were going to play in the Amazonas.
Wow.
And I was looking very, very much forward to do that. And well, it didn't happen. And that was sort of the end of the fun. So, because we had been traveling quite a bit, we've been to Japan, we've been to Australia, New Zealand, you know, many places. And it has been, for me, it was a dream. Again, because being with Paul and Jon Rune, because that was the basic, the trio that we worked the most. And they're very nice guys to be with. Jon Rune is, he's, I don't know, he's about 30 something. Paul he must be he's born in 74, so he must be close to 50. Yeah. Anyway, so but they're very kind to me. Paul, for example, says, "Oh, you need some water," and I forget sometimes to drink water, and he will buy a bottle or give me a bottle. And it's just small things, but when you're traveling, so he will take care. Let's say we go to check-in with instruments and bags and everything. So Paul will very often take care of that. So I don't need to take care of it. So I feel I'm very privileged to be able to travel with them. Paul, when we go, Paul would know which trains we have to change to, you know, and because he's traveling much more than me, and he knows all these places. And so it's been very, very, very nice to go through that journey with Paul and Jon Rune. And I miss it a lot, you know, because going away, seeing other people, eating other foods and all that, it's like, it's been so much a part of me. Then So when this happened, I thought, oh, and it's just recently, just a few months ago, I thought about, taking this fucking clarinet and breaking it, putting it into the oven, burning it up, because as I said, I didn't feel there was any kind of future, but now I'm actually a bit optimistic because I might be able to go to Los Angeles and do something with Bobby again.
Oh wow, man, yeah.
So I think that just the fact that I'm moving a little bit, that I'm thinking about the future, that puts me in a different mindset in a way.
Yeah.
And I have started to train again. I have a bicycle now. I'm sort of.
Oh yeah, okay.
Which also helps the brain.
Yeah, the mind. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I had a heart attack 10 years ago, and after that I had to start training to get in because my doctor told me you start training, and I've done that. But then a year ago or so, I became, and that was also part of the COVID. I just stopped.
Yeah, sure. It's hard. It's hard times. Yeah.
And what's the fucking point? What's the fucking point of anything, And then I'm so glad that I was able to start doing it again because I feel much better when I'm exercising. And I do, well, not at the moment, but when it's getting a little bit warmer, I will start running again. And even though I'm not a long distance runner or anything like that, but
just to be out, yeah.
It just helps me to feel good. And also my playing is affected by it because when my lungs work,
yeah, sure,
then it's better for my playing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know. I thought maybe I could play a few more years. I'll be 74, not tomorrow, but the day after.
Oh, really? Oh, man. Yeah. Okay.
Well, so I'm not a young man anymore.
Yeah, but you have so much energy still going on, and what I hear in the music also. And
but so when I'm with Paul and Ingebrigt or whoever, I don't think about that, the age difference.
Sure, can imagine.
It's just you're part of something, and that is it makes you happy.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
And that's what I want to be. I want to be happy.
Dr. Jazz.